when we spoke a couple of days ago, you mentioned that, and I quote, Atlassian's mission is to make all engineers more efficient. My goal is to make Atlassian engineers more efficient. It'd be great if you can give us a quick overview of how you do that and maybe some of the metrics you use when you try and monitor how successful you are at doing this.
To give you a little more context, Atlassian Atlassian builds tools like Jira, Confluence, Trello, Opsgenie, and others. And if you're familiar with this space, you would know all of these tools are categorized as DevOps tools. Tools used by engineers to build their own product offering. And this is pretty cool, right? So Atlassian is used by software companies to make sure their engineers are highly productive. They know what they're working on. They can align their tasks with the business outcomes and measure them appropriately. But what happens internally? We are consumers of these tools. That's great. But at the same time, the big mission for Atlassian is to launch a product every 6 months. That's not an easy task. Imagine this, you come up with an idea today. 6 months from now, you need to go GA. Available or generally available to everyone who wants to use that offering. From a company that has over 4,000 engineers. It sounds like an overwhelming task, but Atlassian does it over and over. And how do they do it? They leverage the power of platform. A team of about 400, 450 engineers who provide manifests for all of Atlassian, so that when you want to launch a new product, you aggregate these different APIs, put a UI on top, which is again a composable UI, and deliver it to the customers. We have cut down time from 18 months to less than 90 days, which is about envisioning the product, drawing markups, and launching it. Internally, we have all of these processes nailed and ironed out, so that if as a product manager, you see a problem and you go, okay, I would like to fix it. There are manifests or Lego blocks available for you already, at least to support 1 million customers. And after that, we customize solutions for you. But that gives us enough room to experiment something in the market, see what the fit is, and then move forward with it. If the solution sticks, we will invest more in these artifacts and customize it for you so that you can be the next $1 billion business for Atlassian. If not, that's perfectly fine. We'll move you on to something else so that the customers don't have to feel the pain of migration and start building more manifests. So that is how internally, how we do it. We provide capabilities and APIs for commerce, for procurement, for Jira, Confluence, so an orchestration of all of that. So anytime there is an ask of what a product can do, we provide that as a Lego block. We also provide reusable components of front end, so that as a developer, what you have to do is stitch these pieces together and choose and pick, I want to leverage this API, connect with this API, and there are data contracts available already. So instead of writing code, you're aggregating code, putting them together and see if that works. So that is how we make sure the products are able to launch, that we're able to launch products. That's one part of it. The other part is measuring developer productivity. So providing everything from their IDE all the way to production, a seamless pipeline. So when people talk about pipeline, they get fixated on CI/CD processes, which is true. It's a component of the overall pipeline. Pipeline begins on your local, from your IDE, then moves on to your CI systems, which is outside of your system, then on to CD, so that you can deploy to these environments, and then production systems. And then comes the feedback, which is the continuous operations part, which feeds back into your IDE again. So closing that loop is important. And that is one of the tasks that we are responsible for inside of Atlassian. Reporting on that, measuring it, and improving it. At this point of time, Atlassian's, when we started this journey, Atlassian's cycle time was around 11 or 12 days. Now it's down to 2. That means if you get a task today, in 2 days, it will be out in production. And we know this would work because we have all the right guardrails in place. Against the bad deployment, Don't worry, because we have an automated system that keeps checking production and will roll back your code automatically. That way you don't have to worry about these pieces. You just write code, focus on that, keep moving fast.
Really, so I was just speaking to Shai as we were getting this set up, and afterwards now he made a joke, which I think is actually on point, which is we've got the room over there who is stopping us from building things, and then we've got the room over here who are trying to build things anyway. You're talking about things getting faster and faster. There's more and more developers. There is an inherent conflict here. Maybe give us a few ideas of how you guys have tried to solve this conflict where your engineers are now having to spend some of their time on thinking about security. They're responsible to a degree for security. This is a trend that's only going to increase.
That's an interesting perspective. So we don't see security as adversaries. We see them as our strong allies. And the reason for that is you could have a phenomenal product out there. You lose their data once, a hack once, and you lose all of them. You release 10 features, maybe, if you're lucky, you might get 10 customers. So they are on our side, helping us. We don't lose all of them because of one mistake. But it comes with a cost, right? It's expensive. So internally, we know security and reliability are the most expensive feature that we are building. And that is the perspective that each developer has. It's a feature that we are investing in. It's not an orthogonal ask. It is something that our customers demand, they need. And in order to survive, we must deliver on those promises. So how do we operate? Like every other company, devs are not fan of security because they love to highlight issues everywhere without providing a solution. And that's a reality, right? You have something broken, they'll go and put torch on it and go, there you go, that's a problem. And now what? Are you helping me fix it? Nope, that's not my job. You have 5 days, go fix it. It's a critical bug. Now, as a developer, I have to drop everything, switch my context, figure out what the problem is, fix it, test it, and then roll it out. What's the business benefit? Nothing. Zero. I just base my 5 days. That is the perspective that everyone has. So what we have done internally is, one, we have strict SLAs or SLOs like everyone else for security. At the same time, before we onboard a new tool, a new process, a new commitment, we figured out what are the automation capabilities that we can provide to our developers. What can we do to help them make this task easier? There are so many tools out there. A tiny example is Renovate. We did an analysis, I think for 2019. There were 67,000 Judah tickets open for our developers, 3,000 engineers, 67,000 Judah tickets opened by security to fix library issues. Right? We have about 2,000 microservices, so lots of dependencies. But those many hours, and for each ticket, it would take about between 8 to 16 hours. That means 4 days are gone. So 67,000 times 4, that's a big number for any company, right? Those are dev hours lost. So what did we do? We introduced Renovate, built a plugin on top of Renovate, and we did an analysis in 2020. We had less than 2,000 tickets opened up for devs. The devs had to take an action. Are we done yet? No, the goal is to get to 0. If security finds a problem, automation bots pick it up, fix it, test it out in production, and roll it out. No dev hours needed. So security now becomes a stronger ally. So now when they come up with a new proposal, they usually ask for automation. And that's from my team. They go, hey, I'm about to introduce this new tool. What can we do to make sure things get solved faster? So they are selfish, right? They're not concerned about developer productivity. They're concerned about velocity. They want this thing to be fixed as soon as possible. How do you do that? You provide those automated capabilities. So they're okay waiting a quarter so that we can build these capabilities and then roll it out as fair. And it's in Chinese philosophy, right? You have yin, you have yang. So they do the yin part, we do the yang part. So as a developer, you get the benefit. You get a problem that they highlight and a solution. So now you get to see, oh, my code was not doing this perfect, and this is the solution. I don't have to do anything. I just have to hit approve and move forward. Now I'm providing a capability that's much more secure to my customers. Everyone's happy.
To me, it still sounded a little bit diplomatic that you and the CISO get along so well, if I have to be completely honest. Yeah. I mean, as a son of a diplomat, that sounded a little bit, but you know what? You guys managed to pull it off. I'd say the trend, we're hearing this from more and more companies, which is that you have a huge amount of tickets. You don't know what to do with them. They're shifting them over to the development side. We spoke about that. The other trend that you mentioned earlier is that you've got to double down on Kubernetes. And you said that you guys are heavily doubling down. Could you give us a flavor of what that actually means, doubling down? Like, what would you have done if you weren't doubling down that you see other companies doing that is different from a doubling down approach?
Yeah, the tech industry goes through these transformations, right? We were building our own data centers around 2008, 2009, 10, and then cloud came into the picture. We all shifted. With that major shift, all of the startups, all of the talented folks who want to solve these challenging problems, they shift their attention span as well. They don't want to work on legacy, they want to work on the cutting edge. Cloud now, like running EC2 machines, is kind of legacy. No startup wants to focus on those areas anymore. It's like mainframe, right? They want to focus on the cutting edge, which is Kubernetes. So we have the power of many who are thinking about these problems and applying solutions to Kubernetes, right? So that what does that mean? So as a leader, I get paid for two reasons: meeting business commitments, making sure our engineers are happy. How do I do that without infusing more money? I would like to leverage more and more brain power behind these solutions. They get offered to me in terms of SaaS solutions, right? Most of these solutions are very catered towards Kubernetes. So if I go deep dive into that landscape, I have a ton of solutions, a lot of innovation happening in that space. If we don't onboard onto these solutions, we are missing out. We'll have to build in-house solutions. We'll have to build processes because we don't have tooling, right? And if you pivot and move more and more on Kubernetes, I get this for free. To give you a small example, we built our, so at Atlassian internally, we built our SaaS, which is deployment and orchestration and all of that internally on EC2s, right? It took us about 1.5 to 2 years. It's a pretty solid platform, works really well. Kubernetes came into the picture. We decided to ignore it initially, and this was 2016. And then we saw the momentum behind it. We saw the number of GitHub stars going up. We saw the commits that were happening on this platform. We saw the adoption that was happening. It was kind of scary. Like, holy shit, this could be the next big thing. So let's dedicate some resources. So we dedicated, and this is out of like 2,000 developers back then, right? We dedicated a team of 5 engineers. We said, go look, see, prod, and come back with an answer. And they did. They said, this is the pretty cool stuff. Like, you get on it as soon as possible. And that's what we did. So we adopted Kubernetes internally. We changed our paths, which required about 30, 40 engineers to work with Kubernetes. The benefit was immense. A pipeline or local development that used to take days got cut down to hours. Devs were talking not in PRs anymore. They were talking Docker images. I want to test your changes out. You don't have to commit it anywhere. You just share your Docker image with me, and boom, done. People were bringing up local environments based on these images. So dependency testing became very easy. And that's what we did. So we changed all our processes to conform to those standards, and we got a lot for free. And that is what I mean by doubling down, right? Like adoption, of wide adoption of these capabilities.
And so just one question, second question. We got in the room 2 different types of VP R&Ds, some of them are very early on companies and some of them are pre-IPO. And the question is very relevant to both of them, but from different ends of the same coin, which is that now with SaaS solutions, these are affecting margins of companies as they scale. So I used to be as a hedge fund, and when people used to pitch to us pre-IPO, the pitch was always scale is a huge advantage because our margins are only going to grow. But when more and more of your infrastructure tech stack is SaaS solutions, that doesn't benefit you as you grow. So the question is, how do large companies think about this at scale? And as a result, maybe what are the implications for small companies pitching them these SaaS products?
Yeah, that's a good question. And we suffer from that internally as well. So the good part is SaaS solutions might not be the most cost-effective solution out there, but that is not what they're solving for. They're solving for your developer productivity. The only advantage that any company has today is their velocity. You and I could be competing in the same exact space, exact same feature set, but you could win, you could crush me because of your velocity, because of how fast you move in and out. Right? This is where experimentation becomes critical. This is where velocity wins anything that you want to roll out. So an early or seed A company or pre-IPO, we all have one constraint. How many engineers can you hire? Right? Like Atlassian, we are about 3,000-4,000 engineers. We still want to hire more. We want more people working on our platform. But again, we are bound by our financials, like every other company. How do you get out of that vicious cycle? Is get these SaaS companies on board, right? So, I see, Judah, you want to interrupt and ask a question. Go ahead.
Yes, I mean, I'll just follow up on that. You said the only thing you're measured on is how many engineers can you hire, which I'm just going to touch upon that because without speaking to everybody in this room, I can tell you that the number one challenge, if not maybe somebody's lucky here and it's their number two challenge, is how they hire top quality engineers. It's the number one challenge in the Israeli ecosystem, and I just came back from New York and London, and I'm hearing it there again. So just really two questions here is, number one, you hired probably hundreds of engineers. What secrets can you tell us here on how we get them to come to our companies? And then number two is, I was looking over your CV and I've noticed that you've hired engineers in India, you've hired them in New York when you were at AOL, you've hired them in Baltimore when you were in a couple of companies, and then you've now hiring them on the West Coast. So I'm asking, aside from some secrets, which we will keep between us, I promise, are there any differences that you're seeing in different geographies?
Yeah, it's the motivation factor. What motivates people? So every region has their own secrets. The West Coast is very focused on solution. So anytime we pitch a role to someone from West Coast, it's all about what space are you in. They don't care about the brand. They don't care about who you are. They care about where are you, like on what stage of the journey you are, and what problem are you after. So most of the engineers, especially the talented ones, they get at least one LinkedIn in-mail request saying, I have a Y Combinator company for you. It's well-funded, looking for people like you. Would you like to join us? Right? On an average, one message every single day. So there are these many opportunities. So how do you get yourself on top? Get them excited about the space you're in. So for Atlassian, it's easy. We make the world more productive place. They can relate to that pain. Most of them don't like internal tooling that they have in their companies. Right? So it's about relating to that pain, relaying the pain that you experience is real, and we can solve that problem. For other areas like New York, it's divided. It's a combination of the intent, what you're trying to do, and how does that translate into revenue? They're all after growth. companies like for India, it was mostly around compensation and brand. So building a strong brand. And with Atlassian, we suffered from that. Atlassian didn't have a strong presence in India. So when we approached people, we said, hey, you want to work for Atlassian? The answer was no. Who are you? I don't know you. Oh, we're Judah. I know you. I don't like you. Right? That was the thing. So we spent a lot of time investing in our brand, talking about how does Judah scale. Judah is just not something, a task tracker, where you go and every morning start up your laptop and go, holy shit, 25 tickets. What do I do? And then you associate that with pain. So we changed that. We changed the story. We did like, we today run SRE weekly meetups. We run data meetups. We run Tech Talk or AI/ML ops meetups in India to ensure that people associate us with tech, with providing solutions versus a ticket task or a tracker tool. And yeah, so depending upon the geo, depending upon the target audience, the strategy changes, but the core remains the same. Everyone gets excited about the problem that you're solving. If you are really passionate about that area, it's an easy sell. But you need to be convinced that this is the right problem, and you are in an area that excites you.
It's really been a pleasure chatting with you today. Thank you very much.
Sounds good. All right, thank you, Judah. Thank you for your time. Thank you, everyone.